The Chargers have the 5th pick in the draft, and there are a lot of different ways they can go about making that selection. They could take the best wide receiver on their board, either Malik Nabers, the explosive freak athlete that has great ball skills, or Rome Odunze, the bigger wide receiver that is an awesome route runner and has a great football IQ to take advantage of zone coverage soft spots in defenses. Both of these wide receivers are probably going to be blue chip players, but they could also take a blue chip tight end. Brock Bowers is probably the best tight end that we have seen come out of college football since that position has evolved into a pass catching role. And Greg Roman, the offensive coordinator, he uses a lot of tight ends in his offense, and so does Jim Harbaugh, so that would be a slam dunk as well. Or they could even take the best offensive lineman on their board. Joe Alt is probably the best one in the entire draft. They've placed a huge emphasis on the trenches and have mentioned how important the offensive line position is, so we can't rule that one out either. But what is becoming increasingly more likely, and what I want them to do the most, is trade down. And some reports have been coming out about the possibility of them trading down and who might trade up. So make sure to like and subscribe if you do enjoy this content, man. It helps me out so much. And now let's start talking about the scenarios here. So Benjamin Albright tweeted this last week, and if you watched my videos, I brought it up very briefly, but I want to go more in depth on this because I think this really shows the thought process of what the Chargers are trying to do. He believes they want to trade back ideally and then pick up an offensive tackle, and he thinks they like Amarius Mims, the right tackle from Georgia, which makes sense to me because he has that same body type of Mekhi Becton, who Chad Alexander drafted, our assistant GM, and Orlando Brown Jr., who Joe Ortiz and Chad Alexander drafted together when they were in Baltimore. But also an offensive tackle who has that same kind of body type is Joe Alt. He is actually taller than both Mekhi Becton and Amarius Mims. He is 6'8", so that's why I'm saying if they stay at 5, you cannot rule out Joe Alt. But Amarius Mims, he played right tackle at Georgia. And we have Rashawn Slater already at left tackle, so maybe they value Amarius Mims higher because they don't want to move a rookie tackle to a different side. I like JC Latham from Alabama and Taliese Fuaga from Oregon State. Those guys are both right tackles as well, but I understand the draw to Amarius Mims. It's his athletic ability and his mean streak, and he's got a very high ceiling, so I understand, but I wouldn't pick him unless there was a big trade now. Now, how high is he on their board of offensive tackles? Because there's a big difference between taking Amarius Mims in the top 10 and taking him down in the teens. And by the way, this trade down scenario is very real, and I'm starting to think that some team is going to trade up and take JJ McCarthy in the top 10, and I hope they choose the Chargers to trade down because they want to get ahead of the Giants. And there have been multiple reports coming out that the league is much higher on JJ McCarthy than the media, and remember what Jimbo, our head coach, said about his favorite Michigan quarterback of all time.
Don't be surprised when he goes to, he's the #1 quarterback off the board. That's my prediction right now. You know, how he can throw the ball, how he spins it, his athleticism, his intelligence, talk about it factor. You know, he's got it, the competitiveness that he has. That's an early prediction for the 2024 NFL draft.
So let me just be clear. I would be absolutely shocked if JJ McCarthy is picked #1 overall, like Jim Harbaugh is like kind of insinuating here, but he is talking up his guy, and I can appreciate that. So if the NFL likes 4 quarterbacks that much, then there should be several teams willing to pay the price to trade up, and that is exactly what is being reported as well. Daniel Jeremiah, he said 4 to 5 different teams are wanting to move up for probably the 2 quarterbacks that are going to make it to the 5th overall pick, because the Bears, they should take Caleb Williams, and then the Commanders are going to take their quarterback, probably Drake Maye at 2. They could also trade up to 1, but either way, whoever picks at 1 and 2, both of them are going to be quarterbacks. And the Patriots, they might take a quarterback at 3, but the Cardinals are almost a lock for Marvin Harrison Jr. And then the Chargers are sitting right there in front of the Giants for some teams to come up and take either the 3rd or the 4th best quarterback available. So now we know how much Joe Ortiz values draft picks, and he has a history of trading down, so just the thought of being in this position where a team wants to pay him a draft haul for JJ McCarthy, their franchise quarterback at 5, it's probably making him bolt up so hard, because I know I am. Now, I think the teams that Daniel Jeremiah is talking about trading up are probably the Falcons at 8, the Vikings at 11, Raiders at 13, and the Saints at 14, and then the Steelers at 20. And the best haul that you could get out of these teams is probably from the Steelers, because it's going to take them the most draft capital to come up from 20 to 5. But I don't know if they're willing to pay that price, and they might just go for Kirk Cousins in free agency. So I'm just going to scratch that one off for now, but we'll know more once free agency happens. The Raiders, they're a division rival, so I don't think they would trade with us. They kind of just want to wait until the Chargers are done with their guys until they sign them. The Falcons at 8, that feels very likely to me, because they would want to jump the Giants, and it wouldn't be a huge trade because they would only be trading up 3 spots, so it's less of a hit on their draft capital, and that offense, they have weapons. So trading up for a quarterback with your new coach and Zach Robinson, your new offensive coordinator, I think you go get your quarterback. And I know for sure, Zach Robinson, he definitely likes JJ McCarthy. He fits the mold of what he likes in a quarterback. So if we trade down to 8 with the Falcons, would Amarius Mims still be the guy there? I mean, I would hope not, because the enticing thing about trading down only 3 spots is that you get more draft picks and you still pick the guy that you were going to pick at 5 anyways. One of Roney, Odunze, and Malik Nabers is going to be there. Olu Fashanu is probably going to be there as well. Brock Bowers is going to be there too. These are some blue chip guys that you will still get even with a trade down. Picking Amarius Mims at 8 would definitely hurt, but there's another report that I'm probably going to make a full video on. Terrion Arnold being one of the 3 guys that the Chargers are trying to pick between at number 5 overall, and I believe that the Chargers do really like him, and I'll go more into detail as to why in a different video. But one of these 3 guys, Rome Odunze, Malik Nabers, and Terrion Arnold, they're going to be there at 8, and one of them would be the pick in that scenario. Could there be some potential scenario that the Falcons and the Chargers have talked about in terms of, if this guy falls to 5, we will give you this package, and the Chargers know that they could still get one of their 3 guys at 8 with all of those extra picks? I mean, listen, bro, teams are always talking, and guys are connected in this league, so it wouldn't shock me if conversations have already begun. But the reported interest in Amarius Mims makes me think that if they drop lower to like 11 or 14, we know almost certainly that Rome Odunze and Malik Nabers are going to be gone at that point. But Terrion Arnold, he has a chance to be there at both of those picks, but it's definitely less likely at 14. So if the Chargers drop to 14 with the Saints, I think that the pick then would be Amarius Mims, and they probably have him graded higher than a lot of people think, if reports are coming out this early that they like him enough to target him in a trade down scenario. Again, this is a big, mean offensive lineman that is already on the right side of the offensive line, so you wouldn't have to move him in his rookie season. Now, I think the Chargers are smart enough to not pick Amarius Mims inside the top 11 picks, so does that mean that they are talking to some people in the Saints front office, and the Saints are saying, hey, if this player is there at your pick, I'll consider offering you this package, and Joe Ortiz likes the extra draft capital and Amarius Mims enough at 14 to make that trade or consider that trade. Like I said, teams are always talking, and I'm just going through scenarios here, but here's what I think. I think that Joe Ortiz and the Chargers want to trade down ideally. If they go down to 8 with the Falcons, it's going to be a blue chip wide receiver, Rome Odunze or Malik Nabers, or Terrion Arnold, one of those 3. If they go down to 11, it is Terrion Arnold or Amarius Mims. And then if they go down farther than that to 14 or 20 or whatever it may be, it is Amarius Mims. I think the best scenario out of all of the ones that I laid out in this video, I'd probably like it the most if we traded down to 8 with Atlanta and got Rome Odunze or Malik Nabers, because I like both of those wide receivers more than Terrion Arnold. I understand that we have a big need at cornerback though, so I would not be mad at all taking the best cornerback on the board. I also would be happier to take one of those blue chip wide receivers at a position that we're going to need a lot of help with after this season, when Keenan Allen is probably not going to be on this team anymore. So those are the possible trade down scenarios that I am seeing right now. If you didn't see my video yesterday, Jim Harbaugh made his staff official. There are a lot of good guys on it.